There is one type of person almost everyone claims to dislike: the gossip. The person who leans closer, lowers their voice, and begins with, "I probably shouldn't tell you this," which is a very responsible warning that has stopped absolutely nobody. We are taught that gossip is shallow, cruel, and mostly enjoyed by people who have nothing useful to say. And yet nearly every human society does it. Families do it. Friends do it. Coworkers do it. Kings did it. Hunter-gatherers did it. And people who proudly announce that they never gossip usually spend the next 20 minutes explaining why someone in their family can no longer be trusted. But imagine that tomorrow, gossip completely disappeared. Nobody could discuss a person who was not standing in the room. At first, the world would seem peaceful.
No rumors.
No whispered office stories. No relatives reviewing your life choices during dinner. A perfect society. But by lunchtime, a different problem would appear. You would not know which coworker takes credit for other people's work. You would not know which neighbor returned a lost wallet. You would not know which business cheated 3 customers last week. You would not know which friend disappears whenever someone needs help. To learn any of this, you would have to discover it personally, which is excellent if you have unlimited time, unlimited money, and a strong desire to be betrayed repeatedly. Gossip has a terrible reputation, but underneath the rumors, cruelty, and complete destruction of privacy is something much older: a social survival system. And humans may need it far more than we like to admit. First, we need to define what gossip actually is. Researchers use a much broader definition than most people do. Gossip is simply the exchange of information about someone who is not present. That means it is not automatically false. It is not automatically negative. And it does not require a celebrity divorce. Your father telling you that your cousin found a new job is gossip. 2 employees discussing whether their manager keeps promises is gossip. A friend warning you that someone has borrowed money from 4 people and repaid none of them is also gossip. Even praise can be gossip. She stayed late to help everyone. He returned the money when nobody would have noticed. She cared for her neighbor during a difficult winter. All of these statements update someone's reputation. And when researchers recorded everyday conversations from hundreds of people, they found that most gossip was neutral. Not cruel, not dramatic. Just social information. Who moved? Who got promoted? Who is dating whom? Who has started acting strangely since buying a motorcycle? So the average gossip session is less like a royal scandal and more like unpaid community journalism. To understand why humans care so much about other people's business, we have to go back before offices, neighborhoods, and family group chats. Other primates build relationships through grooming. One animal sits beside another and carefully picks through its fur. This removes dirt and parasites. But the cleaning is only part of the point. Grooming also communicates trust. It says, "I am safe near you. I am willing to spend time on you. And for the next few minutes, I have chosen not to bite you." A beautiful foundation for friendship. The problem is that grooming is slow. You can properly groom only one individual at a time. That works in a small group. But as human communities became larger, maintaining every alliance through touch would have consumed most of the day. One influential hypothesis, associated with anthropologist Robin Dunbar, argues that language became a more efficient form of social grooming. Instead of strengthening one relationship by picking insects from one person, humans could strengthen several relationships through conversation. And what did those conversations focus on? Other humans. Who was generous? Who was dangerous? Who had formed an alliance? Who had broken one? Who had food? And who was pretending not to have food? Physical grooming maintained a bond. Conversation maintained an entire social map. The idea that language specifically evolved for gossip is still a hypothesis. But the advantage is easy to see. Talking allows social information to move faster through more people without requiring anyone to inspect Kevin from accounting for parasites. A major improvement. But gossip did more than help humans bond. It became humanity's first background check system. Imagine you live in a small community and a stranger asks to join a hunting group. He looks healthy. He sounds confident. And he claims he is excellent with a spear. Unfortunately, humans did not evolve with customer reviews floating above their heads. You could trust him immediately. Or you could wait until he abandons everyone during a dangerous hunt. Both choices have problems. The second one just involves more running. Gossip creates a third option. Someone tells you that the stranger shared food during the previous winter. Another person says he ran when a leopard appeared. A third says the leopard was unusually large and running was actually the first sensible thing he had done. Now you have information. Not perfect information, but enough to make a better decision. Humans constantly choose whom to trust, help, hire, avoid, marry, lend to, or invite into a group. Direct experience alone is too expensive. If 10 people have already learned that someone is dishonest, forcing the 11th person to repeat the experiment is not fairness. It is terrible data management. Gossip lets us borrow the experience of the group. It also teaches us the rules. For most of human history, communities did not have written policy manuals. There was no prehistoric human resources department. Nobody carved a 400-page document called Acceptable Mammoth Distribution Procedures. People learned through stories. Someone kept more meat than the group considered fair. People became angry. The selfish person lost allies. Soon, everyone knew what happened. The story communicated a rule, without stating it directly. Do not take more than your share. Someone protected a child who was not their own. People praised them. Their reputation improved. Another rule appeared. Helping vulnerable people earns respect. This is why gossip can work like an instruction manual for social life. It tells people what the group admires, what it forgives, and what it will still discuss at weddings 30 years later. But here is where gossip becomes even more useful. It can make cheaters behave. In a well-known series of experiments conducted by researchers at the University of California, Berkeley, participants watched someone act selfishly in a money game. The observers could not stop the unfair behavior. They could only watch. And just watching it made their heart rates rise. Then, the participants were given a chance to warn the next person. They could write a short note saying that the player might not be trustworthy. The moment they passed the warning along, their heart rates began to fall. Nothing had been reversed. The cheater had not been punished. The money had not been returned. But warning another person made the observers feel better. In another version, some participants were willing to give up part of their own payment just to send the warning. Think about that. They accepted a personal cost to pass along reputational information, not because it benefited them directly, but because they wanted to protect the next person. Researchers call this prosocial gossip, a phrase that sounds slightly suspicious, like ethical robbery, but the mechanism makes sense. Formal punishment is expensive. You need rules, evidence, authority, and someone willing to enforce the decision. Gossip is cheap. If one person cheats you, and you warn 10 others, the available supply of future victims drops significantly. And even when gossip never happens, the possibility of it can change behavior. People act differently when they know their actions may travel through the group. A selfish decision is no longer private. It becomes attached to a name. Experiments involving cooperation have found that groups can become more generous when people are allowed to share reputational information and avoid consistently selfish members. Even selfish players sometimes improve after being allowed back into the group. Apparently, personal growth becomes much easier when everyone knows exactly what you did. This does not mean public humiliation is always fair. It means reputation creates consequences in places where formal law cannot reach. Even when nobody important is watching, somebody unimportant may be, and they have a group chat. Gossip also creates friendship. When someone tells you something sensitive, the message contains 2 layers. The first is the information. The second is, I trust you enough to tell you. You are not only learning about the absent person, you are learning about your relationship with the speaker. This is why gossip usually begins after people become slightly comfortable with one another. First, the weather, then work, then family, and eventually, since we are already talking, at that moment, the friendship enters dangerous but efficient territory. Sharing social information helps people compare values. If both admire the same generous person, they reveal what they respect. If both distrust the same manipulative person, they reveal what they fear. two strangers can become surprisingly close after discovering that neither of them likes the same third stranger. Not humanity's finest bonding system, but undeniably effective. The details may seem trivial. Who moved? Who married? Who stopped speaking to whom? But the conversation confirms that both people still belong to the same social world. Gossip is not only information about other people. It is evidence that you are still connected. But every piece of gossip reveals something about the speaker too. Suppose someone says, "He refused to visit his father in the hospital." That statement affects the target's reputation. But it also tells the listener that the speaker values family loyalty, or at least wants to be seen valuing it. Suppose someone says, "She donated the money anonymously." That tells you what the speaker finds admirable. Gossip is therefore a quiet form of moral negotiation. Was that behavior selfish? Was it brave? Was the punishment fair? Did the person deserve another chance? The listener's reaction helps reveal the group's standards. But the speaker is taking a risk. People often see gossipers as sociable and well-informed. They may also see them as less moral and less trustworthy. The weapon has recoil. Listeners naturally wonder, "Why are you telling me this? Is it true? Are you protecting me? Are you jealous? And what will you say about me when I leave?" That suspicion acts as a weak quality control system. A dishonest gossiper may gain a temporary advantage. But if the lie is exposed, the liar becomes the next story. It is one of the few systems where the punishment and the crime use exactly the same delivery method. Unfortunately, this system can become a weapon. Negative gossip is powerful because the target is absent. They cannot explain. They cannot correct the details. They may never know why people suddenly treat them differently. A rumor can reduce someone's sense of belonging. It can make them trust the group less. They withdraw. They stop helping. Then the group interprets that withdrawal as proof that the original rumor was correct. The gossip begins manufacturing its own evidence. People can also use gossip competitively. A person may damage a rival's reputation to gain status, relationships, opportunities, or resources. The information does not even need to be completely false. The most effective gossip often contains one true detail, carefully separated from every piece of context that made it understandable. Traditional communities placed natural limits on this. The speaker usually had a visible identity. The audience was smaller. Other people could compare stories. And the target might eventually answer. Modern technology removed many of those limits. A village-sized reputation system has been connected to a planet-sized loudspeaker. A claim can reach millions of people before anyone checks it. The audience may never meet the target. The original source disappears. The correction arrives later, travels slower, and is significantly less entertaining. Our ancient brain still reacts as if important social information has arrived from a trusted member of the group. But sometimes it came from an anonymous account with a cartoon frog as its profile picture. Evolution did not prepare us for this level of authority. Humans do not secretly need lies. We do not need cruelty. And we do not need to turn another person's private pain into entertainment. But we do need social information. We need to know who can be trusted. We need stories that teach unwritten rules. We need warnings about exploitation. We need ways to praise generosity, compare values, and maintain relationships. Gossip performs all of these jobs. The mistake is treating every form of it as the same. Useful gossip tries to be true. It has a purpose beyond making the speaker feel important. It protects someone, teaches something, or gives credit where it is due. It leaves room for uncertainty. And it remembers that the target is a person, not free content. Destructive gossip exaggerates. It removes context. It rewards cruelty. And it spreads fastest when the target has no chance to respond. This is why gossip feels both wrong and irresistible. It is not a useless habit that civilization failed to remove. It is part of the machinery that helped civilization operate. A society without gossip would not necessarily be kinder. It might simply be blinder. The real challenge is not to stop humans from talking about one another. That has failed for several 100,000 years and is unlikely to improve after this video. The challenge is to make the information more truthful, the intention less selfish, and the response proportional to what actually happened. Because gossip is an ancient social tool. And like most ancient tools, it can build a community. Or, when handled badly, hit someone directly in the head.